Welcome. This is the 8th and final EFT for COVID, Peace Amidst Uncertainty call. And I can't believe that it's been 8 weeks. There's part of me that thinks that we just started this yesterday, and there's another part of me that's like, oh my gosh, this whole pandemic thing is dragging on. So there's a little bit of both feelings for me, that it feels like that this part has gone by really fast, the hosting the EFT calls weekly, but the rest of the pandemic feels like it's taking forever because things are just moving slower than all of us would want, I'm sure. So thank you for those who have been coming on and off this entire time, and welcome to anyone who is new. So just to really dive in, this is going to be the last call that we're doing in this series. We may do something again, but right now we don't have anything scheduled. So I'm going to be doing more Facebook Lives with just some basic tapping and EFT tips and things. And I really enjoy Instagram, but I haven't done an Instagram Live. So I'm looking at doing that as well. So you can look me up on Facebook and Instagram. And actually, this is the time where I'm going to just share, while I'm thinking of it, links, because we have links to quite a few different things. So we created a group for these 8 weeks for the calls that we've been doing. It's not super active at all, actually. There's just a handful of people, and basically really it's been a way for us to just post the videos, because we record this first half, as you know, and then we stop the recording when we go to take a volunteer. So I'm going to share links to my EFT tapping chart for anybody who needs that. It's a link to the PDF, so it just automatically downloads that. Also a link to the Facebook group and my Facebook business page if you want to follow me for more EFT information and tips. And then I have created also an EFT tips handout, so that link is here, and it's also a PDF that just downloads automatically. And then there's a playlist that I've put together, and none of them are me, but it's things that I've gathered from other people that I know in the EFT community, especially my mentors, Craig and Alina, who are trainers with EFT International, and I've been doing EFT and trainings with them since 2011. So really love them, but they have quite a few full-length sessions of EFT where they're doing EFT with a client, and that have been recorded. And there's other people who have something similar out there. And I basically have created a list so that you can borrow benefits, which is what we're doing here in the second half. So basically, you don't have to be tapping on your particular issue to get some results on the issue if you're following along while you're tapping with someone else. And so this list is a YouTube list of videos that you can jump on and watch and just tap along and get results on some of your own issues as well, just by tapping along. And so that's referred to as borrowing benefits. So that's the final link that is on there. All right, so just looking at my notes, because there was a little bit that I wanted to cover today before we're wrapping everything up. So if you are brand new, one of the things that I want to explain is that this is hosted by Chris and I, but Chris has gotten a job that has different hours than what he had before, and so he will only be joining us partway through, because his new job, he's still in training, and that's taken longer than we anticipated. So he's been having to join us late for a lot of these sessions, actually, unfortunately. And so he'll be jumping on a little bit later. Yes, and I can email you the links. I'll snag the chat before we're done so that I can send stuff to you. And then I also, when I upload the videos to YouTube, because the people who are watching this on YouTube don't have the chat, it doesn't record that, it just records the section of the video. I upload the stuff there too, the different links and such, but I will email that to you. All right, so one of the things I wanted to share as we are diving in here. Oh, so yes, I was saying that if you're new here, one of the things that Chris and I are doing is we're using clinical EFT. So EFT, as it was originally created by founder Gary Craig, and the type of EFT that's used in the scientific studies. That's what we're trained in through EFT International. There's a lot of other Meridian Tapping stuff that's come out of the original EFT, and not that those things aren't great, but that's not what we're trained in. So we've had some people be like, hey, this is totally different than what I'm used to. So if you've come to EFT through the Tap-In World Summit or some other things, then a little bit may be different or not. So we just like to point that out there. So what we're doing is the official EFT as it was originally created. All right, so we're going to start with some global tapping, and today I wanted to go back and revisit what's called constricted breathing. So this is a great one that you can do on your own. It's also a great tool to introduce EFT and the changes that can happen really quickly with just 1 or 2 rounds to someone who's never done EFT before without having to dive into the weeds with them about their issues. But this will help us just settle into the room, and hopefully will also help you get more present, but also more present to what's going on for you, because then I'm going to be asking for a volunteer, and I'll be taking the volunteer tonight. Chris took a volunteer last week. So be thinking about that, because there's only a handful of you. So one of you will need to be the volunteer, hopefully. If not, I can always tap with Chris, but we would much rather have one of you participants volunteer. So this constricted breathing exercise is pretty simple. What we do in the beginning is you're just going to take 3 deep breaths. So just take a moment. If you want, you can close your eyes. You don't have to. It's totally up to you. I tend to close my eyes, but I'm going to put my hand on my heart and one on my belly and just take 3 nice deep breaths. Inhale again. All right, and you can be breathing through your nose or in through your nose, out through your mouth, whatever is comfortable to you. So you've taken those first 3 deep breaths. And now, the next time you take a deep breath, I want you to rate that on a scale of 0 to 100%. How much of a breath do you feel like you're able to take? Are you able to get that full breath? Are you able to only get 50%, 70%? And really, it's just a guess. So whatever the first number is that pops into your mind is probably the right answer. So don't overthink it. So go ahead and take a 4th deep breath here and pay attention to what that feels like. And see if you can put a number on that. And if you have something that you can make a note with, you could jot that down. Mine feels like maybe it's 75%. So I'm just going to write that down. And then basically we're going to go through and do 2 rounds of tap-in and see if we can get our numbers to improve. We may get to 100%, we may not. Everybody's be a little bit different, but you should get some improvement as we do this. And so because Chris is not here yet, normally I do the tap-in points not touching the face, and he demonstrates the regular tap-in points. So I'm just going to go through the tapping points quickly where we're not touching the face, in case somebody doesn't want to feel comfortable touching their face during this time with the pandemic and everything. So we're going to start with the side of the hand, or you can rub some of the tender spots that we have and all the lymph glands here as we do the setup statement, and then the top of the head. And if you're not going to be touching your face, you're going to skip down to do the collarbone points, and then the liver point was just under the breast at the bottom of the rib cage, then under the arm, and then the wrist points, and it's the front of one wrist to the back of the other, and then we switch like that. And you can hang out on each point just a little bit longer, or you can go through and do each point twice, because there's less points when we're skipping the face, but we've thrown in a couple extras there, but it's still not as, it doesn't match up with the points when we're doing the face. So I just want to throw that out there. So I'm going to do the regular points where we're touching the face. If you don't want to, you don't have to. But go ahead and repeat out loud after me. You don't always have to say it, but you really get the best results when you say it. The whole idea is we're trying to tap into what it is that we're working on and bring that up in our energy system, and verbalizing that helps us do that. If you're working on something where you're already so angry that the steam is pouring out your ears, or you have tears falling down your face because you're that much in your sadness, then speaking isn't necessary because your emotions are right on the surface. But otherwise, that's why we're doing the talking and verbalizing out loud. So go ahead and repeat after me. Even though I have this constricted breathing and I feel like I can't catch a full breath, I deeply and completely accept myself. And again, even though I have this constricted breathing and I don't feel like I can get a full breath, I can't take 100% when I'm trying to take a breath, but I still deeply and completely accept myself and my body. And the third time, even though I feel this constricted breathing, I feel like I can't take a full deep breath when I try, I still accept myself and my body. All right, and then top of the head, this constricted breathing, I can't get a full breath. Outer eye, this constricted breathing, I feel like I can't get a full deep breath. This constricted breathing, the chin point, this constricted breathing, collarbone, I feel like I'm not using all my lung capacity. Under the arm, this constricted breathing. And then I always end on the wrist points. If you're not used to doing that, that's okay, you don't have to. This constricted breathing. Okay. So again, take a moment to check in, take another deep breath and see where you're at. Pay attention to if there's been any movement. So yeah, so I feel like it's maybe an 85% now for me. So it's definitely feeling a little better. Anyone else notice any changes or differences? Any thoughts or anything that popped up during that round? Feel free, you can put that in the chat. If anybody's noticing anything. And then we're going to do one more round. Nice, yeah. So several people noticed quite an improvement. Wonderful. So mine went up just a little bit. We're going to do another round. And so anytime you're working with EFT, when you're going to do that second round, if you've had some improvement, but it's not completely improved. So normally we're doing from 0 to 10 on what we call the SUD scale, which is the subjective units of distress. We want it to be a 0. We don't want to have any upset or the negative emotion that we're working on, right? But it doesn't always improve right away. Sometimes we get those 1-minute wonders or miracles that happen with just one round, but most of the time it doesn't work that way. So if you have just a little improvement, the next round you do, you just change the wording slightly and you say, even though I still have this, whatever the thing is that you're working on, or I have this remaining. So that's what we're going to do with this next round and see if we can get it even more improved. All right, so go ahead and start your tapping again. And remember, anytime we're doing this throughout the entire call, when someone's sharing, when someone starts volunteering, you can just be tapping while they're talking or while you're talking if you're the volunteer, or anytime you are starting to feel maybe flooded or overcome with some kind of emotion, you can just tap. Because if the emotion's that close to the surface, you don't have to talk, you can just tap. So just always keep tapping. All right, so repeat after me. Even though I still have some constricted breathing. There's been some improvement, but it's not at 100% yet. I could improve more. And yet I'm willing to accept myself. Even though I still have some constricted breathing, I know there's still some room for improvement. I deeply and completely accept myself and my body as it is right here and now. Even though I have this remaining constricted breathing, still not quite getting a full breath, there's room for more improvement. yet I still deeply and completely accept myself. All right, so top of the head. This remaining constricted breath. Eyebrow point. I still have some constricted breathing. Outer eye. Still not catching a full deep breath under the eye. This remaining constricted breathing under the nose. Still have some constriction to my breath. Chin point. This remaining constricted breathing. Collarbone point. Still feeling this constriction when I take a deep breath under the arm. This remaining constricted breathing. And then the wrists. I still have some constricted breathing. All right. So again, take a moment, check in with yourself and your body, take another deep breath and see how it's changed. Yeah, so I feel like I'm really close. I'm not quite 100%, but I was feeling a little bit of a catch in the upper part of my chest. And this time that's totally gone after doing that second round. So how about everyone else, if you want to report in chat if you've had any improvement or if anything else came up for you during that. So it could be that you had thoughts about something else, sometimes an aha, sometimes not. It's always different things. We never know what's going to come up. Yeah, so a little bit more improvement. Nice. Yeah, so I love it when I have that, like I can feel the quality difference. Like I had that catch, a little bit of a catch before, and I'm not feeling that now. Yeah, someone else is saying, wow, some more improvement again. So this is a great one because if you're trying to share EFT with a friend, they can feel an improvement right away because it is something physical that we're tapping on. And then, of course, you can explain that EFT can be used for all kinds of things. It's not just physical things. I like to refer to it as a form of emotional acupuncture without the needles is one of the ways that it's been described before. But this is also a good thing to do just anytime you're feeling stressed, because what happens when we're really stressed out is we, especially in the West, are upper chest breathers and we're not using our full lung capacity. This is something that can help us tap into that and bring down the anxiety that is associated with, well, or bring down the stress levels and what's associated with anxiety, because when we start to feel anxious, that's when we become upper chest breathers and we're not using our full capacity. But it's so common in our society to just be on the go all the time and stressed out all the time. It's kind of a badge of honor for a lot of people with how much stress that they're under. And so this is a way to really slow down that body's stress response and to be able to tap back into our full capacity to breathe and use all of our lungs. So one of the things I like to talk about, and I don't know if I mentioned, because we've done constricted breathing on one of the earlier calls, but I don't know if I mentioned this then, is that one of the longest running health studies that's ever been done is the Framingham study that was originally done around heart issues, but they were measuring all these different things and they were following people for decades. It's one of the longest running, largest studies that's been done in the United States. And they weren't quite sure what they were going to find out, but they were trying to, discover ways to help improve people's lives and the amount of time that people, longevity could live. And the number one factor that they found was lung capacity, and the researchers were actually blown away. So the better your lung capacity, the longer you have to live based on the study. And this was, again, done with thousands of people over decades. And I believe they might even still be doing it. Like, it's just, they keep getting more funding and kind of continuing it. I haven't looked it up recently to see if they're still following some of those people. But yeah, lung capacity is very, very important. And we tend to have less lung capacity because we're so stressed out all the time in our society. So doing a deep breathing practice is a great thing for your health. And as a side note, I do laughter yoga, and one of the best ways to increase your lung capacity is through hearty laughter. So just thought I'd throw that out there. But all right, so at this point, we're going to take some questions. Does anybody have just any general questions about EFT? Oh, and while you're thinking of questions, there was another tip that I wanted to share, since this is the last one before we wrap everything up. So affirmations and positive affirmations are a wonderful tool, especially right now. We're being bombarded with so much negativity just because of the pandemic and everything that's in the news cycle. It's really increasing a lot of stress for a lot of people. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about how you can use positive affirmations with EFT. And that because we're talking about this, I also want to talk about this idea that there are a lot of people who come from the law of attraction communities. And when they find out about EFT, they're like, ooh, I don't like this because we're talking about the negative. So I want to address that aspect first. Why are we talking about the negative? We're talking about the negative because that's what we're trying to clear. So you need to bring that up in your energy system. So that's why when we're doing the setup statements, we're saying, even though I have this sadness, or even though I have this pain, this issue, whatever the thing is that you're working on, because you want to bring that up in your energy system so you can clear it on out. The second half of that statement, we say something like, I deeply and completely accept myself, or I'm willing to try to accept myself, or I'm okay right here and now in this moment. It's something positive that you want to put on the end. So if you need to change that statement, you can, so that it resonates with you, because sometimes it's difficult for people to say that they deeply and completely accept themselves. So if that doesn't feel true to you, and then that negative self-talk starts, coming in, you can change that statement. You just want it to be something positive. And that's really for your subconscious to know, hey, even though we're working on this difficult issue, we're okay and we're safe right here and now. So feel free to change and play with that statement if you need to when you're doing any tapping on your own. But this brings me to my point about using affirmations with EFT. So say you had an affirmation that you wanted to be working on. I am full of ease and peace. I picked that one because it kind of goes with the title of the call. We're talking about peace amidst uncertainty. But a lot of times when we say something like that, I am full of ease and peace, immediately, no, I'm not. You're a ball of anxiety. You're stressed out all the time. Whatever that is starts to pop into our heads. And the problem is that's actually what we're affirming is that thing that starts popping into our heads, that negative self-talk. And so in the EFT community, we call those tail enders, because it's what's popping in on the tail end of the affirmation that we're trying to use. And that's what you end up really affirming. So if you have something that you're trying to work on in the area of a positive affirmation, but yet you have all this negative that's popping up every time you try to use affirmations in your life, that's great fodder to take to your tap-in practice. And so basically, whatever that is, whether that's, how you're just a big ball of anxiety, then you would say, even though I feel like I'm a big ball of anxiety because I'm stressed out so much, I really want to be full of ease and peace, but I'm not there yet. I still deeply and completely accept myself, or I'm still willing to try to accept myself. And use that to do some tapping work on. And then from there, you can go and use your positive affirmation. I'm going to let Chris in. He just arrived. But so basically, in the beginning, what you can do is you can take that positive affirmation and give it from a 0 to 100%. How true does it feel? It only feels 50% true, or it only feels 25% true because I have this negative self-talk that's coming in. And then you can do some tapping around whatever those things are that are popping up in your head, the negativity, and then go back and say that positive affirmation statement and see if you've been able to get any improvement on that percentage. Has it been able to move up to a more positive percentage? And usually it has. So that's just one of the tips that I wanted to share with you before we move on, because this is our final call. And at this point, welcome, Chris. So good to have you joining us. Is anyone like to volunteer or have any other questions? Go ahead and make you the co-host there, Chris. But yeah, if you have any questions at all about EFT, feel free to ask them now. And all right, no questions, no questions. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and
I have a quick question.
Okay.
I had to step away for a second to close the window partially. Is there an optimum amount of time to do the tapping, both the total amount of time and the time you tap on each acupressure point?
So what I've heard about like how long you tap on each point is it's around 7 times, but you don't really have to count. And some people have a point that tends to be their favorite, as in it's the point where they start to notice over time that that's where they have more releases when they're tapping on that particular point. Not everybody has a favorite point like that, but some people will notice that the more they are doing the meridian tapping. And so if that's the case, you know, you could always tap a little bit longer on that point if you want, but it's really pretty forgiving. So you don't have to like sit here and count like, okay, I tapped 7 times, now I can move. So it really is very forgiving. There's not too much that you can get wrong when it comes to tapping on the points, because some people, the tapping that actually can be a little bit irritating, people who are really sensitive to energy. So some people will just do a tap and breathe where it's more like they're touching it, or they're rubbing on the point and not actually tapping, and that can work for some people. So it really is quite forgiving. The other question that you asked was about the amount of time just to do any EFT, and there's not really an answer for that either. It would be great if you could do some every day. And whether that's just a few minutes or whether you're able to actually take a whole hour and do some tapping on your own, you know, for most people, it's not something that is realistic for them to spend an inordinate amount of time every day doing tapping. So some people would just do a little bit of tapping here and there throughout their day, and then maybe have once a week where they're, you know, swapping with someone, or they're sitting down, you know, by themselves and you know, taking a full hour or something to do the tapping. So there isn't really something that is like the way to do it. But things that I tend to recommend when I'm working with clients are tapping in the mornings about anything that you might be worried about, you know, when your day is starting. Is there anything that you're, you know, kind of fretting about that's going to be happening that day? Tap about that before you even get started, or doing some positive tapping about, you know, I'm going to have a great day today, or whatever it is that you want to affirm. You could do that, and then tap in at the end of your day to get rid of anything like yuck that's happened that day, so that you are able to sleep and move on. Like, can you imagine if you were able to tap and you knew how to do this when you were younger, and you could like start off like not collecting all this baggage like most of us have from, you know, all our years of life, childhood and adult. So those are 2 of the ways that I recommend for clients to get in some tapping, to do a little bit in the morning and a little bit at night before bed. Another thing that I don't believe we've talked about on any of the calls that comes from Gary Craig, the founder, is the personal peace procedure. And the idea behind this is, whether you get a notebook or a spreadsheet. The first time I did this, I had it in a spreadsheet, and you start listing all of the little negative things that you can remember throughout your life, especially in your childhood. Now, I want to put a caveat here: nothing that would be considered a major trauma. That's not the type of work that we want anybody to do on their own. You need to be working with a practitioner if you're trying to do some EFT with major trauma from any point in your life, whether it's your childhood or just happened a year ago. But you know, that time that you got embarrassed in front of the whole class because your zipper was down and somebody pointed it out, or that time, you know, your brother, this happened to me, ruined your brand new doll from Christmas, but the way he did it, he scared the atomy. So it's like all these, if it's something that you remember, then it's significant enough. Even if now as an adult, you're like, oh gosh, this so silly, like I don't even want to like mention this. But if you are able to remember it, it had an impact on you as a child. So you just start listing all of those things, and you can go through like each year of school or each age. You can go through like, these are the things I remember that happened with my parents. These are the things I remember that happened with each of my siblings, or these are things related to school, or these are things related to, the religion or church of my youth, that kind of thing, to try and help you kind of go through and remember these things. Gary Craig says, if you don't have a list of 100, you need to go back and think about it more. But the idea is to just tap on one of these little things every day. And within 3 months, you're going to have just this amazing effect on all of your life, because we all have these little teeny things that have happened all throughout our life, and it just adds up more and more, piling on top of each other, and it really has an effect, and we don't realize how much of an effect it has. So just tapping on these little things that have happened over time that even now as adult we might think aren't that big a deal, can just create so much peace and ease, and just create space in our lives. It allows so much good to come and happen. Like, it's really quite amazing. I've gone through the personal peace procedure when I first was doing EFT, and it's something that I wanted to do again, because I'm sure there's a lot more things I would probably be able to think of that I didn't get on my original list. But it's a pretty amazing thing to do. So I don't know if that totally answers your question. And Chris, if you are able to chime in, if you have any other things you'd like to say about doing some tapping every day and how much tapping.
Yeah, I agree with what you said. And for me personally, my favorite time to tap is right before bed. I'll often just tap on, even though I'm, disappointed I didn't finish everything I wanted to finish. I deeply and completely accept myself. Another common one for me is, even though I'm worried about not getting a good night's sleep, or waking up too early, or something like that, I really like that. It really kind of completes the day for me. And tapping on all those little things that maybe bothered me, maybe a few little things that bothered me during the day, it's really helps me.
Yeah. Yeah, I notice, I definitely notice when I'm not doing that. Because insomnia is an issue that I've had on and off for a long time. And so, yeah, it definitely is something that helps me ease kind of that racing mind that can happen at night and make it hard to sleep. So, yeah. So did that answer your question enough, or did it leave you with more questions, Mira? Did you have anything else?
Pretty much. You touched on it. I was just, it's better to do it a few times during the day and just do a few rounds of it each time. And then that's my last question with this.
Yeah.
Or just do it once or twice, but maybe a few times during the day. And how many sequences when you do it each time?
Well, there isn't really a set thing, because it depends on what's coming up for you. So, and that's why when it's something that's a smaller thing, you might be able to just do 2 sequences and you're feeling better, and so you're like, okay, that's all I need to do. If it's something that brings up more issues and you're like, ooh, there's a little more here that I have time to deal with, you can always take note of that. Like I tend to keep a notebook with me when I'm doing my own stuff, so that I can jot things down, because sometimes something comes up that I don't have time to deal with in that moment, because I realize like, okay, there's more to this issue than what I thought, and I have to do something in 15 minutes. I don't have time to get into the tooly weeds here. So I'll just make note of that, so I can come back to that another time when I do have a little more time to do more rounds and get in a little deeper. Because the thing with EFT is you never know what's going to come up. Like, stuff comes up out of the subconscious, and we're like, okay, that didn't have anything to do with what I am like originally tapping on, and I don't understand why it's related, but your subconscious understands why it's related, so we don't really kind of question that. But we don't always have time to like dive into that. So, you know, often when we're just doing these things here and there throughout the day, it might just be, you know, a round or two, and that's all that's necessary. But if other things are coming up that you don't have time for, you can do the sneaking away technique that we've used in all of the other calls, and then just take note of what that is so that you can come back to it another time when you do have more time to do it. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay, great. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording here.